All right, seventh graders, here we go again. One more interactive notebook with our video. So we're going to be looking at the early issues that took place with President Washington, some of the issues overseas, some of the issues just overall in the United States. So we're going to start off with a topic called the Whiskey Rebellion. Now, since you've read the book, you have a general idea of what the Whiskey Rebellion looks like. The Whiskey Rebellion. Because of the taxes from Alexander Hamilton, small farmers in Pennsylvania were very upset about how much they had to pay for their whiskey tax. And so President Washington, because he's heard of this uprising, decides to send troops into Pennsylvania to crush this rebellion. Now, you may think when you hear that President Washington was willing to send troops in to stop this rebellion from happening, how could the leader of the American Revolution say it's not okay to rebel? What Washington wanted to say to people, and what he did is said, if you want to change the government, use the Constitution. That's what it's there for. Don't just rise up and try to use some kind of physical harm or trying to attack people that had nothing to do with it. Like what we'll see on the next slide about the Whiskey Rebellion is a picture of a tax collector that is being tarred and feathered by angry Pennsylvanians. So here is the picture from the 1700s of a tax collector being tarred and feathered. Painful, embarrassing, and wrong. Next, the Americans moving west. So the idea for the Americans from the early onset was that this continent was going to have more for the Americans than anything. That it was going to be a part of who we are, and it was going to be a part of our identity was this continent. It was not, we're not talking manifest destiny yet, but that's starting to come into show. So first we have General Anthony Wayne. He defeats 1,000 Native Americans during the Battle of Fallen Timbers. This was located in northwest Ohio. The Battle of Fallen Timbers leads to the Treaty of Greenville. This treaty will end up opening the Northwest Territory to expansion. This is what northwest or present day Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. If not for the Treaty of Greenville, there is no Chicago. So we can be grateful to Anthony Wayne and those in Greenville, Ohio that helped make this treaty possible. Our next slide is a picture of the Treaty of Greenville. If you're ever actually in Greenville, Ohio, and you go to the Garst Museum, you can see a very large reproduction of this painting as well. We also have a painting of the northern frontier. You can see New York and Pennsylvania very well defined. You can see Cincinnati. You can see Vincennes, which is in Indiana, the Ohio River, Tippecanoe, St. Clair's Defeat, Fallen Timbers near Lake Erie, Detroit, Lake Michigan. So, moving on. Europe. Issues with Europe. In 1789, the French Revolution begins. Now, most Americans are pretty excited about this and say, hey, this is awesome. The French are doing like what we did. They're fighting against tyranny. They're fighting against the monarchy. They're going to make France a better place. But 4 short years later, the guillotine has claimed the heads of the king and queen. The French Revolution has gone from being a war for liberty and fraternity to a war against Maximilien Robespierre, war with Napoleon being the centerpiece, and Napoleonic Wars starting in 1793. So many Americans are divided between the French and the British. Who should we go with? The French were our allies. The British used to own us, but the British give us lots of money from buying our goods. So we have Thomas Jefferson, who's very pro-French. He goes to France. He was the Secretary of State. Then we have Hamilton and Adams that are very pro-British. Hamilton's about money. The British buy a lot of our stuff. And then you have President Washington, who wants to be neutral. He thought that being entangled with these different groups, overseas or whatnot, was just bad for business for America. And this slide will have some pictures from the French Revolution. So there we have on the right some French freedom fighters, and then on the left we have a picture of the guillotine. Next, Washington's farewell address. In President Washington's farewell, he warned of the following things: political parties, entanglement in foreign affairs, and sectionalism. Political parties were going to rip the country in half. Foreign affairs, alliances with other countries, getting involved in other countries' wars were going to stretch America thin. And sectionalism, North versus South, which, if we use a little foreshadowing, is definitely going to mess things up. It's called the Civil War. So make sure you do your input-output, and I will see you in class tomorrow.